Helen, how has your own life experience led you to the Syrian refugee camps and what you're doing over there?
There's been 3 or 4 deaths in my family in the last sort of 10 years. And once I'm through my own trauma, I realise that what's left, that residue of that grief, is actually a material in itself. It's a form of energy. But what it means is you have to be in situations where that energy is kept company. And whilst my own experience of being with the refugees, I can't compare it to the levels of trauma that they've been through. I think, perhaps selfishly, there's a part of me that feels more comfortable in a refugee camp than I do living in London.
You mentioned loss and grief, and that's something that I think everyone can relate to. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about how you really focus and get through that?
I felt very late in life I'd found my soulmate. And very, very quickly, and before we knew he was terminally ill, we became, like that old cliche, we became one person. There were 1,000 threads coming out of me and 1,000 of him into me. And then to be told you have very little time to live means that actually everything you would normally imagine you have the luxury of time for, you have to squash into that time. So we travelled a lot, we did everything that we could, you know, that his health would allow. And the grief actually starts before that person dies, because you know that they're not going to live very long. So that getting to know of grief happens even when they're alive. And in a sense, being in love and knowing that you're dying, you couldn't really have 2 more opposite sort of spectrums of emotion.
What would be the best way, in your opinion, to move forward with the acceptance of things you can't control when you're dealing with something that's traumatic or something like a loss that you feel is unbearable?
Grief will have her way no matter what you do. But I think when you can stay in the present and be in relationship, and be careful about who it is you're in relationship with, and I'm not talking about romantic relationships, but I'm talking about what we're doing now. That's the only place where there's any healing. So if I feel what you're feeling and you feel what I'm feeling, grief is being healed right now.
That's good. I had one other question, just to totally change the subject, about authenticity, because a lot of my inspiration for all of this, we're told to be ourselves and to be honest about ourselves, and make a fearless inventory about who we really are. But what if when you do that you discover that you don't really like that person and you want to be somebody different?
I'd probably start with the person that you think you don't like isn't actually you. That's an imposter who's been put in place by a number of things that might have happened earlier on in life. So it's about, again, putting yourself in a position where that imposter can step aside and who you truly are can step forwards.
Helen Storey is a legend. I had no idea what I was in for. It really was powerful and moving, the level of peace. She's the most inspirational person I think I've had the pleasure of ever interviewing, and I was really not expecting it to have that kind of effect on me. And she was very open about the transformation process.